Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's episode. We're going to be talking about the remainder of the Resident Evil series that aired on Netflix a few weeks ago, and we're sort of motoring through it because work is getting a little busy, so I'll be out of pocket for a bit, but also because there's a lot of fun content coming up, and we want to be able to cover that. So, without further ado, I'm here in Brooklyn. I'm H.A. Conrad. Here's my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hey, hi.
Hello. And we really had to get through a lot of episodes to do this
I
week,
think this
but
was a record. This was 5 hours of TV we watched for this episode of the podcast.
yeah, this is a lot. But I don't regret this decision now that I know everything. But before we get into that, we do have a couple of news items. One which just honestly gives me a few nightmares. And so we'll dive into that, and then we'll talk about Resident Evil, and we'll wrap up that review. So the first thing up is that there was this whole article that scientists at Rice University have created little necrotic zombie spiders. So basically, they like had these little they took these these spider corpses and injected like air and some other stuff into them and made them into these little like gripper things. The video is incredibly disturbing. But yeah, that happened. What did you think when you saw the video, Stuart?
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely nightmare fuel. Very freaky. That's definitely a dead spider. And then they're just making it hold stuff like raspberries.
Well, I mean, like the whole thing about the spiders is that similar to ants, they're like gripping power, and they're able to like do a lot of things that they shouldn't be able to do for their size. So their strength is like kind of crazy, which I guess is why Spider-Man, right? But yeah, I don't know what they're planning to do with said research, but I am disturbed by their demonstration video. I don't think I need to see that again, but scientists,
Man.
they get the job done, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and I think everybody's kind of like, you know, everybody's kind of being a little like silly about it and being like, aha, super, there's an origin story and all this kind of thing. And so basically I don't know what they're planning to do with this and what they would like. They're like, oh, well, they could do this better than any kind of synthetic gripping and things like that. But it's like, but what exactly would you, I don't know, what exactly
So
would you do
next they
with
have
this?
to grow giant spiders and then kill
Well,
them and then
that's
put their bodies to work in car factories. But then one of the spiders will get away when it's enlarged and we'll have a new world order.
right. But one of the things that they mentioned is that, oh, we could, use them to capture and collect smaller insects and other specimens without damaging them. And I'm like, does that really come up all that often? Is there really not any
I mean,
other
isn't
way?
there like this thing called the vacuum cleaner for that?
Like, I don't know. It's like, anyway, so there's that lovely story. Next up, the Interview with a Vampire 2022 series. They released the trailer, the teaser trailer, whatever you might call it. There's definitely some reimagining going on. Which I think that the story at face could use a bit of updating anyway. So I'm kind of excited to see what they do with this. It feels very much like an AMC production. I don't know what you felt about it, Stuart, but but it looks nice. It looks like what I expected it to look like.
Yeah, there you can tell like there's some real familiarity with the story that's going to be going. Like the general plot seems
Yeah.
quite familiar. I think they've just tweaked some of the characters to make them maybe a little less homogenous. And yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. I am mildly excited. I think is probably the wrong word. I'm interested. I anticipate this. I think that I'm going to be eager to watch it, but I don't know if I'm going to like it. If that's a feeling that has a word.
I have the same feeling, and so maybe I'm a little less eager to watch it because I'm afraid it's going to be terrible, but maybe it'll be great. I admit I was not psyched about the film.
We've just
So
been burnt before, so that's I think tempering some of our expectations here.
yep. Um, but yeah, so that's out in October, which, time for Halloween, although I think it's early October.
Oh, October 2nd, yeah, which is a great time to come out because there'll be plenty of other stuff. It's not a great time in that respect, but we have just a lot of good stuff coming up. And then another announcement was made, which is more marketing for Walking Dead, but they're having like an hour long special with Chris Hardwick. It's like a Talking Dead format, maybe. It's next Sunday, August 7th. And they will be previewing a lot of the stuff that's coming up in the universe, such as Tales of the Walking Dead and I believe Isle of the Dead, other Walking Dead Prime updates. So
So
there will
so
be
are
some.
they previewing it, or are they just talking about it? Is that the idea? Like they're just trying to tease up expectations, because I'm really
Yeah,
not into those kinds of shows. It kind of bothers me. I don't
especially when we're so close to Tales of the Walking Dead to be on TV, it doesn't feel like we need more anticipation for that. Um,
know, but that's kind of what they do with that show, especially. And I don't
yeah,
know. I'm just not a fan, and I just don't care enough. But that's just me.
but
I
if
did.
people are, oh, they're bringing back Dave Navarro. He hasn't. Oh no, some celebrity superfans featured include. So they have had Dave Navarro on the show. I remember him because he was like the only guest of the show who's ever criticized it on the air because he came on in season 2, the first
Yep.
season of Talking Dead, and was like, there aren't enough zombies. I was
Hey, but
surprised that they're name dropping him here as like someone that they had on the show because usually I think it's contractually obligated that you are only like glowing in your descriptions.
I would be more of a fan if they were not. Um,
Yeah, like, and I guess that has soured me on the show too. Chris Hardwick now just feels not unlike one of those spiders with a syringe in its back.
Correct, correct. So maybe he is. Maybe we don't know what's really happening behind the scenes. But but anyway, I am excited to see the show. So don't mistake that.
And another note is, yeah, they're going to be talking about the new Rick and Michonne show, but another show that is again not here is Fear the Walking Dead. They have
Oh
just, it's
no,
like they've
really?
disowned it.
Well, they
They're just,
should.
but I mean, maybe it'll come up, but they're just not talking about it. I
They
might have to watch
should.
this just for that to see if it actually comes up at all.
It sounds like a drinking game to me. Um, just to like see if they do anything with that.
What do you drink for
Um,
every second they're not talking about it?
I think that would just be a fool's errand. Anyway. All right. So, maybe I don't know. There's no good way to make that a drinking game.
No, I
Um,
don't think so.
all right. So next up is our review overview of Resident Evil, the rest of it. So this is episodes 4 through 8,
Yeah,
which is the full shebang. Um,
yeah.
And okay, so I know that the ratings are still, I checked them and they were still pretty low. I think they were kind of the same as the last time
They
we
haven't
checked.
really changed. I think it's kind of settled
Um,
in.
and well, now that I have watched it, I do understand some of the criticism.
I
Um, but
the
but
legitimate criticism maybe, but not the 1 stars.
right, but I still do not think that this is like a one-star thing. I overall it kept to it, it kind of stuck to its guns in terms of being, to me, like this popcorn action, silly to some extent, campy, on the verge of ridiculous at times, kind of fun summer horror ride. And so there's definitely some things in here that just would bother me for any kind of show or movie for that matter. But overall, I still think it was a lot of fun. And I don't think that these 1-star reviews, I have to give a side eye to those. Um, so yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where I am as my sort of like overall thought on the whole
I
thing.
think this was a hard show to binge. I don't feel like it had whatever that quality of a bingeable show is. And I think it's like really cool cliffhangers that make you have to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
And there was one or two episodes in this 5 episode stretch that we watched that were not great. And so that really kind of takes the energy out of it. So yeah, it was tough to watch all 5 of these back to back. I'm with you there. It was really though, I think only one episode that I thought episode 5, I think was the
Yeah.
one that I was just like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
bored.
That one was definitely boring. You're right. So yeah. But as a whole, and definitely compared to some other things we have seen, I just thought that this did some really like it was just silly and fun and kept in line, kept that storyline going, brought back some things from the whole sort of film franchise. I think it kept things somewhat fresh, and even some of the most ridiculous things were ridiculous, but kind of like, okay, that's where you're going with it. That's fascinating. Go for it, And so anyway, I still don't agree with this like it's something like a 50% Rotten Tomatoes review and it's like an
Yeah.
overall like 2.5, which I really no, sorry. There's definitely something going on there.
Yeah, the 52 is from critics. It's 26 from the audience, and those are the ones who have really been just coming in to crap on it. Like people even say, like I started an account here just so that I could come and give this a 1-star review.
Yeah, and there's been interestingly like a lot of reviews that are like basically saying don't listen to these other crazy people, and I kind of agree with that. And so it just makes me wonder about really who those 1-star reviews are. So anyhow, let's go into it. We last left off. This is episode 4, The Turn, and this is when we're still kind of seeing whether Billy is infected or not. Been given kind of a clock, and Billy's having moments of weirdness here and there. And I like I will say, I guess this is a typical teenager thing to do, but if you think you're going to turn into a total psychopath, I don't know that this is the path I would go down in terms of the things I would do. But
This to me, I feel like this is a bit of a trope to go to a party when
mhm.
the world is ending. I mean, it happens in the movie. Was that Virus, the one with the
Yeah,
worms, the zombie worms?
yep,
They totally go to a party, and that's kind of where things go very badly for them. And the party actually doesn't go super badly for them in this case, other than Angel shows up, and then and like the fact that Billy's been bitten becomes a little more of less of a secret. That's the only real negative outcome, because otherwise Billy throws some sick skateboard tricks.
hmm
Mostly it just kind of kicks off some of the drama that we run into in episode 5 too, because then Billy's like, oh, you were more interested in Simon than you were in watching my sick skateboard trick that
yeah,
I did.
and she's mad about it.
And
Um,
that is just a big downer on the story. So yeah, that kind of begins that narrative, which is not cool.
yeah, my thing is that they do understand that there is a chance she might just totally lose it, and hurt other people, but decide to go to the party anyway. I guess that's a teenagery thing because, Billy just wants to live one last night or something.
Jade does try to talk her out of it, yeah,
Sort
and
of, but not
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 very
well
hard.
enough.
No,
And so then they're there and all, and there's also like I don't know. I think that, ultimately it worked out well. I did like the element about the fact that when they're tracked down by Angel, he is like basically he's tracking them down, but it's like this creepy like from their point of view, it's this creepy dude that's tracking them down. So I
he
thought that
has
that was
serious creepy vibes.
yeah,
This guy
like
does not
totally.
understand what he's putting out there.
No, and so they're like that totally makes sense to me. The fact that they would like run away and all this other stuff, and it's like he tracked them down using social media. It's like, ooh, stalkery dude. So I kind of liked that element and the fact that that's how they played that. And of course he gets taken by Umbrella's been tracking him all along, and he gets taken by them into the lab.
It's kind of laughable that now is when Umbrella's security
Yeah.
decides to kick in, because it's so far it's been pretty much a joke. Like Simon can defeat, as we see throughout all of these episodes, Simon is running circles around their security, which is with his cell phone and an Apple Watch.
Mhm.
Like it's just sad.
No, I
But
know.
if Angel, parks his van and looks at Instagram for 20 seconds, they can get a photo of his face from like a very low angle, which suggests that there's a camera like in his window. It's, anyway, I just thought that was hilarious.
I mean, he does give them some key information and basically is like telling them that Umbrella's evil and that what happened to the original Raccoon City and all of that. But, he's doing it in such a way that I think that they're questioning his sanity and lots of other things. So there's that. And then we also have the alternate timeline going on, the future timeline in 2036 happening, and we get a lot more with Jade and Baxter, and um there's something that we have never seen before in this particular, like there's like a whole kind of weird work camp where they're using the zombies to do like, kind of like hard labor, but they're organized by this strange zombie with a, I don't know what it's like, she's got a cry or a neck thing or something going on where
Yeah.
she's able to organize them, and of course Jade is like, what the heck is that? um and
It's
they,
funny because the Zeros have a lot of like weird growths on them, and the way
yeah,
that they've done the makeup, there are bulges and lumps all over these people. But she somehow is able to pick out this like giant neck tumor on the Mother Zero, and is like, it's the, like, this comes clear in a couple episodes. It's this growth on her. I've never seen anything like it. I'm like, well, I feel like I've seen a lot of those, and they're usually on people's eyeballs, and it's everywhere. And I'm not sure how you were able to pick this one out.
as being different, yeah.
But I mean, clearly the Mother Zero behavior tips her off that there's something
Right.
going on. I thought this was a good twist to have. It's like it drives forward her mission. But absolutely the best part of this episode is Baxter's killing
Yes,
spree.
he's killing spree, but also, they are uneasy allies because he's just like, okay, we got to get out of here. I mean, he still does have a mission, because as long as he has her, and I don't think she has any doubt that he'll turn her in the minute they get out of there. But at least for the moment, they're gonna use each other. But he's definitely comic relief. You don't believe anything he says. He talks about his kids, then he talks about his dogs. Like, it's very, like, just as like the reason why he's allied himself with Umbrella. And so, but he is, this is just a very ridiculous and silly way for them to get out. And he pops up at really great opportune moments when it gets a little too dark. So I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he's and I just the choreography for this like musical death montage that he gets is fantastic. He
Mhm.
just he slays, and he looks good doing it. And I'm just like, man, this is unexpected. That was unexpected for me, for him to have that moment. It was not unexpected that he would get eaten at the bottom of a ladder when he's like, "Pull me up, Jade."
Oh, I know. I was like, that's not gonna happen. That's definitely not gonna happen.
I don't care how
Um,
strong she is.
well, he wants her to give up the head of the weird zombie woman. So there's that part too. Um, so that is, you know, that is another thing. What did you think about the Brotherhood though? Because they are kind of like just incredibly creepy.
Yeah,
Um,
but underdeveloped, I would say. I mean, they get less than they get less than an episode. So there's
yeah,
nothing.
that's
What can you do with
that's
that?
well, that's what I was gonna say, but it's like they kind of built this whole thing up with them. So I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna get a little bit more into what they are like and why they're like this. But oh no, they were just basically window dressing to get them into this situation so Baxter could shine.
They're religious wackos.
Yep.
They like to chainsaw up live food for the Mother Zero, and I think that's what Baxter and Jade can expect to happen to them too. So it's a good thing that they got out of there.
Yep.
But the Brotherhood is kind of like very simply eliminated, um, if not by their own zombies, then by Umbrella, who shows up later. Well, at the end of this
Right.
episode and into the next one.
Yeah. All right.
I
Do
think
you
that's
want
kind of all I have for this episode 4. There's obviously like a 45 minutes of content here. Oh, you know what? Mother Zero has a Guar t-shirt on, which I thought was nice.
Oh, that was pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah.
And uh,
Yeah. So let's
yeah,
hop into the next episode, which is the home movies, and I think my least favorite.
thumbs down. Yeah, lots of sister
Um,
drama.
yeah, too
The
much.
only good part about all the sister drama that happens in this is the long period of time that Simon is on FaceTime but is held on mute.
Yeah, that was actually kind of funny. I mean, I do like that, some of the things about they're back at the house, they're discovering some things about their dad. I do like that sort of, mystery that they're discovering all these things that their dad is something that they did not anticipate.
I
Um
did not anticipate some of the things that he turned out to be.
Uh, I I did not either. Though I will also say, like, look, he's been taking blood from them forever. I feel like something should have tipped them off that things were not right.
Yeah,
Um, Also, the other thing is that like, okay, they make a lot out of the fact that this whole house has like a secret basement. I don't know any kid that doesn't like kind of explore their house like I don't know. It just doesn't seem realistic to me that they wouldn't have explored this house a little bit more
but
to
it has
find.
it's a totally hidden door, like even
I
with an
know,
RFID lock. But what I'm curious about is I feel like we've had scenes of Albert in this basement lab in previous episodes, like when his kids were home. How has he not accidentally walked out of the wall in the
when they're
kitchen?
there, when they're there,
Yeah.
right? I do like a couple of the little like things. The fact that Simon's so familiar with these floor plans in New Raccoon City that he's the one that kind of figures this out, which is fine.
This is part of the
Um,
idiocy of this character and his ability to just hack everything all the
Right.
time.
But, they use him for a little bit of knowledge just about like all the security cameras that are in each house, which by the way, if you're him, aren't you thinking that that's pretty creepy, and their dad is looking at them on these cameras. There's still this worry about Billy being infected and like going to go crazy and so, and he's back at the Umbrella Lab, and he's tasked with torturing Angel because he's now and the guy made a pretty big mistake in sort of tipping off their dad that he knew about the girls. So now he's really committed to making sure that he does not live.
Yeah, I wrote down
So
in my notes. I know your daughter is apparently the incorrect passphrase to be
yeah,
friends with Albert because he just starts beating him up.
yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah.
So that stuff, but that they just made this was just so long, and they made things just they drew them out. This whole like my thought as they were like kind of going to this house trying to find the clues is that if they had actually gotten the emergency email from Albert to get out and to find this bag and to find this clue, it apparently would not have been very urgent because it takes them like forever to
Right.
figure all this out. So it's like you come on, are you really doing things and leaving things like with a musical like key?
Well,
Like, do we
apparently the
need to do
Moonlight
something?
Sonatas is a throwback to the game, I guess. So it was a
No, I know it was, but I was just like, oh, this is like
but
ridiculous.
yes, like in the half of the time, the extra time it's taking them is when they have to like low crawl around all these cameras. And it's just it slows everything down. And if I have an overarching criticism of this storyline, the new Raccoon City storyline 2022, it's that it actually like it seems to slow down as the
Right.
series goes on. Whereas and I've already said this on one of our previous podcasts, I prefer the 2036 storyline. It's got more action, it's more exciting, and that kind of keeps up the pace for the most part. Actually, I think it does, and even when it slows down, it's for good reason for the most part. Uh, and this one is just I feel like the pacing ends up being its biggest enemy in this 2022 storyline.
Yeah. Um, and there's a lot that goes on here, but the fact that what they get to see like a video, which is basically, more stuff
No, it's Lisa
about
Trevor, which is
it's Lisa
pretty good.
Trevor, which is super disturbing. And if you found this on your dad's laptop, you would be like, oh my gosh,
And you hear
so
your dad's voice even if you don't see his face, because I think that was the Blade version of Albert Wesker.
yes, it was. And so that's pretty disturbing. But then it all gets burned up and like their dad shows up and it's sort of like, oh, what did you
Can we
there
talk though
are
for a sec about it all burns up? It's easy to just trip past that, but all they do is unplug a computer and
right.
it locks the doors and sets off a flamethrower
Yeah.
incineration device. And
Yep.
it's like, damn, dude, you might want to have at least a bit of a failsafe in there to make sure you don't accidentally,
Burn yourself up.
if you were to trip over a cord or you're moving your keyboard and something gets unplugged, maybe you don't have the flamethrowers go off quite so easily.
Immediately, right? I mean, there's got to be a way to do a counter passkey or something, but anyway, no, agreed. But it's also what I thought was fun, like not funny, but kind of funny, is that, then he shows up and it's like, oh, we burned down your lab, but there's like, I mean, I know there's lots of other things going on, but you know, I think I'd be pretty scared of my dad at that point after having seen the Lisa Trevor stuff. And maybe I think they are, but it's just an incredibly weird interaction. And, you know, I know that they like start to question him about their origins and they're like very worried about it. But you hear this stuff from your dad. I don't know. Like, I don't know that you would stay there, or I think it feels like they probably would have run away or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I guess they still trust him, but I think it would be kind of hard to trust him at this point. And
Well,
so
they kind of, I guess I kind of lost the plot a little bit at the end of this episode where they part ways. He's going back to work to kill Angel,
yeah,
to like clear their, or maybe that's so that they can stay there, so they're no
uh,
longer under suspicion. But yeah, they're in a very weird place in their relationship, obviously. Like getting told by your dad, I edited your DNA while you were an embryo and you could speak Spanish when you were 4 years old, etc. You're just like, cool.
yeah,
Thanks, Dad, I guess. Also, why are you a monster?
right. Then there's also the fact that Umbrella is aware of their origin, and so it's like I, I don't know, like it feels like I don't know that Umbrella would be allowing them to run around free, but maybe that was a deal they made with him. Um, and then on the other end of things, and this is at the very end of the episode, Jade is captured by an Umbrella unit, and then there's this whole dramatic thing where the person sort of capturing her turns out to be her sister Billy.
Yeah. And that was the only part of, I feel like 2036 that's in this episode is like her
Yeah.
getting rolled up as soon as she leaves the bunker and it's Billy. And it was like the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. So there's
Well,
very little 2036 to speed up this episode of the show.
right, and I think that's why it was my least favorite, honestly.
Yeah,
So yeah.
probably there
Uh,
too. And episode 6 was someone's little girl. And here we have Wesker going back again to Umbrella. I feel like every time he does this, it's more dangerous. And this time it is because he gets arrested.
yeah.
He puts a lot of joy and some Alzheimer's drug is what he's telling Evelyn
Mm.
he's going to do. He puts that into Angel and then he immediately dies. And Evelyn, as you might imagine, then decides that Wesker is probably a mole and has him arrested.
Well, and before he kills him, he makes Angel. He asks Angel if anybody knows about the girls, and he says no. And so, and I think Angel is clear that he's going to die here, but I think he's doing this maybe as a quicker way, but it's not exactly a good way to die. Like he's convulsing, it's
Yeah,
bad.
it doesn't look pain free. When you think about Angel Rubio and his motivation for leaving Tijuana and going to South Africa, it's
Mm,
basically the show kind of wants us to think that it's because he's a conspiracy theorist and his dad thinks he's a joke and he can't pay rent.
so
Like,
that's his
is
motivation.
is
It's
that
kind of weird.
motivation enough to go on a suicide mission to New Raccoon City? I guess no, I don't think it is.
No, agreed, agreed. And we do have a couple tidbits from Evelyn that she paid off anybody that had talked to Angel to basically cover up the tracks of Umbrella. And so and we saw that because there was like some interview with a woman whose husband had died as in one of these incidents. um and he seems like almost surprised that this was like an Umbrella motivated thing that happened, that like somehow they weren't powerful enough to do this. It was like actually kind of weird. But I agree with you. I just don't think the motivation for him to be like traipsing around and destroying his whole life is there. It probably would have made more sense if somebody very closely tied to him, like a significant other, had been impacted by this. And that's, I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't go that
Like
route.
a wee Huey sort of plot, right?
Yeah,
From the boys.
yeah,
Yeah, so that would have worked a little bit better. In 2036, Billy lets Jade go, which is clearly a trap. Like it was so clearly a trap.
yeah,
But Jade, I guess, is kind of dumb, and she starts to act pretty dumb in this episode.
yeah. And
Future Jade.
that's like, this is the thing that really, if anything drove me crazy, this was part of it, because they make a lot out of the two girls being so close, knowing each other's thoughts, knowing each other's behavior, even if that's like a negative behavior.
Well,
And
it sure feels like Billy knows Jade's thoughts, even though they haven't
well,
seen each other in years,
correct, but it should go the other way around as
right?
well.
Yeah.
And they make so much of that. And then it's just like, why on, if you know that this is like a company that has all this capability of tracking and other things, and that they're like embedding different things. And I mean, I guess that was sort of the ruse, was that she dug it out of her arm to act as if she was helping her and made this whole story up. But it was like incredibly manipulative. To me, it was like very, very clear that that's what this was.
Yeah, it was super clear.
And it just, for somebody as savvy as Jade, it was hard for me to swallow that she believed this
As
ruse.
savvy as she's supposed to be, anyway. Billy
Right.
also says something that's troubling continuity wise for me in this conversation. She says, "Dad died asking for you." Unless she's talking about Bert, I don't. And she calls him Bert later, so I don't know if she would call Bert Dad. But
Yeah.
we see Albert die in episode 8,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, we don't, but it doesn't look good for him. Um, So I'm not sure what that means because Jade reacts like, oh, "What? No!" And then she tells Arjun later, "Dad, my dad's dead." I'm like, "Yeah, he
Yeah.
died. He died like when you were 14." I
Right.
mean, okay.
And
Uh,
that's, I mean, all I can think, it's, I agree with you, because I caught on to that too. And I was like, okay, so did they somehow like, did they feel about like Bert this way somehow? But, or is there something that we missed and they cut, which is entirely possible. But
they
I don't
could
know how.
definitely work this in after the fact, and say, well, because they don't actually, and this is another
Oh,
major gripe for the series or this season, is that they don't finish that storyline in
nope,
2022, or they don't take it to a place that I would consider to be
finished. Yeah.
even like cliffhanger finished.
Right.
It's just kind of out there.
And there's definitely a few holes, like as we get into the end of this. And so there's a lot that they kind of gloss over or expect you to just kind of assume certain things. So, um,
Another thing that they kind of just throw out there, and then Evelyn says later, like, "Oh, a freighter, what a good hiding spot." And I'm like, this is the most obvious place for them to be in the apocalypse. How many functional freighter ships are there right now? And this
well,
is the university's like
big
expert
thing,
hiding place.
and it's massive. And the thing that I just kept, and I thought about this even, the last, it's like, okay, so they've got this big thing. They talk a lot about the university, all this thing, all this stuff. The only sort of organization that really has the capability of like drones, of other stuff, is Umbrella.
Yeah.
And like, there's just, to me, there is no way they would not have discovered this thing out there in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like it feels weird that they wouldn't have. So I find this to be really truly implausible, but implausible. But that's another sort of gripe.
Also, if they're in a freighter, why couldn't they have just sailed closer to Dover and picked her up instead of having her go to
Right?
Calais? Like
Right?
it's on the same body of water.
Right. Right. It's a very strange thing. I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that, but it is what it is. And so, and we've got like um a whole like thing with the freighter where it's like, I don't know, there's the idea that that this university, in addition to sort of collecting the detritus from the old time, like they're basically trying to preserve paintings and culture and books and that kind of thing. But in addition to that, they have apparently very advanced science labs on this freighter with not unlimited materials, but basically everything they need to do. And Jade does like a lot of experiments on this, and that's hence apparently that's why she was in the field. That's why she brings his head back. And I like I don't know. Did you think that that was something that would make sense? I don't know. It feels like they're trying to make this university, and I guess, it's just a floating university, but given what we've seen of this world, it felt weird that they would even make progress on certain things, given the dearth of supplies.
Yeah, I mean they make a spit surrogate, which it turns out they don't even need to, because Jade can just spit in a petri dish and synthesize or catalyze these enzymes that they've pulled out of the Mother Zero's neck tumor. It's all gross. It's all fairly implausible, but it also works. And I kind of like the gimmick that they pull off out of this with the cologne
Yeah.
for zombies. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Another thing that they do well in this episode is they show the shadow that they're towing behind the freighter, and you're like, what? What's
Yep.
this?
Yep.
And I thought that was pretty deftly done. Like, it's clearly a show in this case that was thinking ahead about, like, all right, what are we gonna do in episode 8? What's our
What's my
what's one of
name?
our big end pieces gonna be? And let's tease it in episode 6. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Right. I also, I like, the foreshadowing in this in terms of like her lab partner. Um, I
I
thought,
expected Amrita to die a lot sooner.
me too, actually. I actually thought it was going to be something related to the experiments they were doing.
Yes. As soon as she
Um,
left to go to the recital, I was like, well, it was nice knowing you, Amrita. But they made it even worse because
I know.
they made it 100% Jade's fault.
Yep. And again, that was one of those things that I was like, yeah, I don't believe Jade would do this at all.
I'm
So
sorry. Not only is she doing like illicit zombie retrieval missions, bringing zombies into her community, which I have to think is just like the biggest no-no.
she's
And
involving her daughter in it in a
then she's like,
strange
yeah,
way.
oh, sweetie, it's great that you're here. Just stand over here and let me put up these really fragile straps on this on this zombie. Like, everything goes wrong, but also it's just like a massive series of terrible decisions.
Right. Right. So this just troubled me incredibly. Um and in the 22 timeline, probably the weirdest thing that we've seen um happens in this, which is or is revealed in this. And uh there's this whole bizarre thing where Albert's like locked up, and he like because of the fact that Angel has died, and he sees this like weird hole in the wall, and there's an exact double of himself.
Hey,
So
bro.
yeah,
The performance that Lance Reddick is putting into Bert is
it's
nothing I've ever seen
yeah,
from this guy before, and I
it's
love it.
great. It's great. It's really fantastic. And if you like Lance Reddick, there's just so much more of him in
There's
these
so much
this.
more and more
And
to come.
it's almost like there's like he's doing some kind of a an audition role with each character, which is kind of amazing. And I really like, I know it's ridiculous, but I thoroughly enjoyed
uh
his performance.
yeah, I don't know how many actors I
Could
would
do it.
love to watch being triplets or clones of themselves, but I now know that Lance Reddick is one of them.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. He doesn't have to act against himself too often, but it does happen. And it's just a lot of fun.
I mean, I was thinking, why didn't they just cast him as Orphan Black? I thought that would have been amazing.
Yeah, we also have a scene here which was the first time I wrote down in my notes for the 2022 plot. This is how the zombie outbreak begins, and it was when Angel's body starts to just kind of like fall apart.
Yep.
I was like, this is it. And then no, it's not.
Yep.
This
That,
happens 4 times, and that
mhm.
also gave me a sense of general fatigue.
Yep.
Not no, because I we were told at the beginning in the first episode that Jade was there when it started.
Mhm.
Um, Spoiler alert, she's not there at the
Nope.
end of the season. And has it started? Still not really.
Yeah,
So
I know. And it's kind of like I thought the same thing. I was like, we're gonna have a big scene that does that big reveal, right? Nope.
just a day zero zombie outbreak. Like we don't
Right.
get it.
Nope.
We get a lot of teases, and that exhausted me by the end of this season. Which is why again I prefer the 2036, where they're a little more straightforward, but and maybe predictable in some ways, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we get into that fun here in episode 7. And actually, seven is a good episode because here we meet the rest of the Wesker triplets and Wesker Papa, um, who is Blade. Like it's
I know
like
he's kind of a combo of Blade and Morpheus, but he's definitely channeling Blade.
he's got
A lot of
the
Blade.
ankle length leather. He's got the
Oh.
sunglasses and more hair than Lance Reddick has maybe ever had in his professional career.
Hmm. Yep. No, it's
Uh,
pretty
and he's
good.
fast. He's fast like Blade. So I was like, what, are they just combining two properties here? I'm here for it. That would be fine. And we meet Al, who is I think Albert. We meet Bert again, and we meet Albie, who is
Hmm.
not long for this world.
No, he is not. Or Albie. Um, and I loved the whole like idea that he had Wesker cloned himself and was using himself to do all this research on things. I thought that was kind of amazing. I loved his interactions with himself, and specifically with the blade sort of persona of himself, what that was
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Um, and then they do a nice job of teeing this up so that when we see, we have Al and Bert talking through the wall, and as it turns out, you know, Bert's been in there for a really, really long time. And, Albert has been out in the world living his life, and there's this like really sad interaction between the two where Albert's like, yeah, so I've actually been living my best life, or at least a better life than this. And
Yeah,
and Bert is like, oh, like it's like a really sad thing, but a good scene between them.
Bert
Um,
is just this childlike sort of persona that it doesn't also doesn't seem like it gets him down too badly. He's like, yeah, this is where I live. It's for my own good. Uh, he doesn't, he's not like crushed by the news that he's been in jail for 17 years for no reason.
yeah. But he's also been used to do, he's continued his work for Evelyn, and it turns out that that's ultimately where Evelyn has been getting some of the tweaks to the joy formula. So, like, weirdly, it's been like coming out of the same mind, but just a different sort of take on things.
Yeah.
So
The the fact that she walks into that lab where we had the clones is pretty wild.
yeah,
So she's known about their origins this whole time.
yeah, I do
That's
love it though, the reveal when she walks in the lab and she's like, "What have you been doing?" Like, she is Evelyn is such a great bad guy.
yeah.
And she's really this is such a fantastic scene, and she immediately is like, how can I use this to my advantage,
And
so
it's such an interesting choice that in this episode, later in this episode, they actually reveal her fate in
Mhm.
2036, and it's not as the big bad. And I thought that was another sort of unexpected twist for me. So this show does manage to serve up some unpredictable twists, which I thought was pretty cool. Because the way that Billy is manipulating her
Mhm.
is, to me, unique. I haven't seen that before.
No, and I think that was definitely, I think, a shock to me. I was definitely taken aback by that, and I said, "Wait, what?" And I actually had to like go back and watch it again because I was like, "Okay, this is really strange." Um, and it put a new twist on even the interactions between Evelyn and the head of the university and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was kind of cool. And I liked that they had
Yeah.
that reveal.
And it's such a
Uh,
reversal of her, remember, excitedly talking to Albert about mind control and how she would be the one pulling the
yep.
strings and telling people like not to contribute to climate change, and she's going to change the world. But and like how ironic and poetic that it's actually not her, and she's just another person under control by the end. I mean, that was an interesting idea. I That's kind of where my appreciation of it ends in a way. I feel like the woman playing Billy in these scenes where Jade throws her cologne in that meeting, and then thousands of zombies come. There are some scenes of like Billy and Jade holding hands, and they're trying to like get us to remember that these two actually liked each other at some point. Um, but it's just like building up to Billy's remembering, I guess, that she has these killer drones that can really take care of this no problem. I don't know,
Yeah,
like it's kind of weird.
and I actually, it was weird, but I kind of liked it because it just shows what a formidable enemy Billy is and what she's become and how far removed it is from the relationship of them as sisters. And from the point where it's revealed that she actually is the puppet master to the point where it's like, okay, well, you have your crazy clone, well, I have this, and um I agree. I thought it was a little choppy in how they revealed that because she seems a little like she's like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And then
Yeah,
suddenly it's like, oh, by the way,
she
I can
goes
take care of
from
this.
terrified for her life to smiling with her iPad or whatever, right? It
Yeah,
felt like okay. I feel like you would have remembered that because they've shown these drones in like every
right,
interstitial cut. So
right,
I think we all know that they're around. Anyway, and
right.
that's even in the next episode. But in this one, we just get the the university turning Jade over to Umbrella, which I was like, yes, hell yes, you should do that. She,
Well, also they were like, I mean, come on, they were on the verge of kicking her out anyway, as they should, because she put everybody in danger. So
yeah,
it was a weird thing to me to have the head of the university, is it Yakim,
Sakim,
Go and talk to um Evelyn, quote, and basically be like, oh, we're not going to do this, or being so defensive and so protective of Jade when like Jade has put everything at risk here. And I would be like, yeah, you can have her. But yeah, that was a little strange. But in any case, they have this whole sort of build up to them handing her over, and she keeps saying like mysterious things um like so she tells him that he needs to like hit the button. She also has she this is what really confuses me, this whole thing. She has this whole conversation with B, and
oh god,
much like her dad has done, she tells her to go and get a duffel bag and get her dad and go, and if he won't go, to go by herself. Then, and this is jumping into the next episode, seems really surprised that B has done that.
yeah, no, that
Right?
was
Did I miss something drastic?
nope. I think you got it there. She makes another really bad decision.
Yeah,
But at this point, she's made so many that you're not surprised anymore.
right. So that's in 2036. I do want to talk a little bit about the 2022 timeline, which is we now know that the clones exist. We know that the original Wesker was like, okay, I'm gonna kill all my clones, but then get stopped because Evelyn and them have kind of just discovered all of this. So instead, he eventually gets taken out. But in this episode, Bert has like found out that Albert has been living this whole life. Um, Asks him specifically about the fact, and Albert's like, "Oh, I have a family. I have all this. I have my daughters." And Bert, like, this is what's interesting to me because Bert clearly had the capability of getting out all this time. It didn't take that much. He just casually kills the guards and gets out.
Yeah,
And then I do think that this whole acting, all this stuff between him and Billy and Jade is hilarious. Like Bert shows up at the school. He's doesn't know who they are or whatever, so he's just like beeping the horn. Like there's this whole great performance, and then I will say that the Olive Garden scene with him and the girls is amazing
do
because
you
he
feel like this
punches.
has to be product placement, right? But it doesn't actually
Has to
paint
be.
it's not like a positive scene. And I feel like
No,
when you usually get product placement, I feel like the sponsor usually has all kinds of riders, don't they? Remember when Hyundai had like all these riders about how they couldn't run over people with their cars in The Walking Dead,
Yep.
or the car couldn't get into a wreck either. But
Yep.
Olive Garden, Bert goes on and on about the unlimited breadsticks, and then how there are actually limits because they can't get one basket for all three of them, and then he throws the basket at the server, and I'm just like, do you think Olive Garden's cool with this? I don't know. It felt a little
Yeah,
bit weird.
I was thinking the same thing. However, it made for a completely hilarious scene.
It was because it's Bert also. And
Yeah,
like, this is no longer Lance Reddick. This is no longer Albert. This is a whole
right.
different person. And even when Lance Reddick is playing Albert, it still feels like a few other Lance Reddick characters that I've seen.
Yep.
Bert is nobody I've seen before. Uh,
Right. And that's what makes it so amazing. And I love it. I thought it was just so good. And I would like to see more of this kind of acting, honestly. It's just it shows what a range that Lance Reddick has, and I thought that this was awesome. And I also like how the interactions with the daughters, and they're like, what is happening to our
yeah,
father? And like
I was glad
this
that it didn't take him too long to catch on.
no, no. But okay, think about it from their point of view. Like maybe dad's had like a mental breakdown. Maybe dad's they did something to him when he was like under control of Umbrella, right? There's like so many possible scenarios, but not my dad's a clone,
And he comes right out and tells them
right?
about it too, which is funny.
Yeah,
Like, he just
yeah,
comes right out. And then he has a pretty cool little fight scene too, where he's
yeah.
trying to fight off the Umbrella security guys. Can't beat Roth. Roth is apparently more than a match for even clone Jitsu over here.
Yeah.
And then they all get taken in, I think. Yeah, they do also reveal the massive crocodile at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
so in episode 8 is Revelations, and we have a flashback actually to when Amrita's alive. It's not. It's like It's like an intermediate flashback. It's 2030. Jade and Amrita are looking at an infected lizard and have figured out a way to put it to sleep as a zombie. I don't know. This is how they're attempting to explain how they got to this crocodile. I'm glad that they put in the work to try and explain how they got a giant zombie crocodile. It still doesn't really do it for me. They show that they have the technology to put a tiny lizard to sleep.
right.
They do not show how they were ever able to put the technology onto this giant crocodile.
Right. And I think it also explains, like, because she makes this comment that this thing is more of her sister's bag. So there, that also kind of explains a little bit of how Evelyn became this sort of weird part of herself or whatever, this
Yeah.
sort of puppet.
Kind of
So,
suggests, though, that Jade has seen Billy work on science
right,
stuff outside of high school.
right.
Billy also suggested the last time she saw Jade was when she was 18. If they're 14 in 2022, well, how old are they in 2036? HA, can you do that math real quick?
This shows an
2036
algebra.
minus.
If somebody was like,
Oh,
whatever,
it's 14 years, so they're
yeah,
28. So it's been 10 years since they've seen each other.
it was revealed in the whole confrontation when, when Billy was saying how she was sick and how their dad died and all that weird stuff, that the last time she had seen her, she was like pregnant and she says, oh, I lost the baby. So it's like clearly that she wants to hide the fact that she had this kid. Um, and I'd probably hide that from Billy too, because Billy seems psycho.
Yeah,
Um,
Billy does seem psycho, and by the end of this episode, very psycho because yeah. Um, this is although a pretty cool set piece with the Umbrella Camp getting overrun by the thousands and thousands of zombies. Feeling
yep.
pretty good about it. I feel like Jade has some misgivings about what she's done. When Billy's like, "Whatever you've done, stop it," and Jade's like, "Oh, I can't. This is it now. This is what's going to happen." I'm kind of curious about how these zombies are all trying to run toward the source of the smell, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, doesn't necessarily mean that they have to attack things in their way. Maybe it does, but Jade certainly can. Maybe it's because she has the counter spray on that
I
she
think
can
she
run
has the
past them.
counter spray on, and they're ignoring her. So
Yeah.
I think she does. But okay, but this comes to the big plot hole because if this was the plan all along, why on earth did she tell B to leave the ship?
Yep.
Right?
It's a big question. B certainly has left the ship by the time that Jade manages to get back on it, and then they she and Arjun have to leave the ship again after going to some lengths, like climbing a rope up the back of the freighter, etc., and then releasing the crocodile before she knows where her daughter is. Also, launching the crocodile was analogous to launching a nuclear missile, which I thought was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah, that was funny. Launch the crocodile.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and the crocodile effects are pretty good. It's it wrecks a lot of things. I'm a kind of little incredulous that Billy managed to escape the first time it came on land because she was right there where it looked like she was. But then a couple scenes later, she's running away with her last soldier who she hasn't shot.
Yep.
It was a weird little mini cut in that scene where she starts to shoot at the umbrella soldiers as well as the zombies,
Yep.
where an umbrella soldier stops shooting at zombies and starts to walk toward her. I think the scene is so short that they only take like 2 steps, and
Yeah.
then in the next cut, everybody's dead. But I feel like they'd done a reshoot or something there where they were thinking one soldier will try to stop her and she will kill him, or maybe that's the soldier who she was running away with later. I just
I
noticed
don't
that
know.
as like a bit of a weird
It was
glitch.
strange. I agree. I was like, I wasn't sure what they were trying to do with that.
It just looked like a mistake.
Yeah.
But not a super noticeable one, but I went back and watched it a couple times. It's like,
Yeah.
what happened to that guy? It looked like he was just dead because they did a top down shot where everybody was dead, but then she's running with a guy
Mhm.
a few seconds later.
I don't know. Maybe they just come out like stormtroopers. They just keep, propagating. Never
Yeah,
ending.
yeah.
Um, and then, I think that this is kind of where I was just a little frustrated, which is that they sort of reveal a lot of things in this episode in the 2022 timeline, which, brings us, I mean, I think it was supposed to bring us full circle. And basically, Bert is, being held captive. No, not sorry.
Albert.
Albert is being held captive by Evelyn, and um, she admits that Bert has been working on all this stuff with Joy, and that if he doesn't help her, she's going to torture him because it's we know that the blood of one of the girls has been, or both of the girls has been keeping him going because he's a clone, and I guess there's a lot of problems with that. Um, and so that's kind of where he is. Then we have Jade and Billy basically like, hey, we're gonna get out of Dodge, and they're caught, and there's this whole like kind of weird fight thing. And this is the first time it's almost like really public because Billy's been having a couple hallucinations. She had a pretty big one in the house when Roth is like telling them to get their things. And we do they have that sort of like crazy music. She's like rocking, and so we know something is going to happen. And I was expecting a lot more out of this. I thought she was going to totally take out Roth, actually.
Yeah, he
And she
kind of she
doesn't.
charges at him a few times as like a quarter zombie, and he beats her very easily both times.
Yeah.
This was another point where I was like, "Oh, Billy is going to be how the zombie outbreak begins," and it turns out no again. And in the last
Again.
episode, my this is how the zombie outbreak begins was Diana is on Joy and she's acting super
Yes.
crazy, and that was
Yeah.
also not the way that the
Correct.
zombie outbreak began. But that is what got Simon to fully join the Jade and Billy team,
Right.
which is how he ends up getting killed.
Okay. And I also think that they totally telegraphed the fact that that was going to happen
just the fact
pretty
that he never showed up in the
strongly.
future.
Well, that, but also there's like these like really these moments where, these are, Jaden and Simon have been sort of doing this, dance of like, oh, I'm going to insult you and I'm going to do this. And oh, why are you so mean to me? But you still like it and all that, that whole thing back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then at one point he's just like very tender with her. And I'm like, oh, Simon, you are totally going to die. Um, and so, there's that. I did think that the scenes with his mom, who is totally like she's basically creating the whole meal that they had done the night before. She's really out of it. She's just incredibly weird, and I felt like that was very effective in bringing him over to their way of thinking.
Because
Um,
Diana has been, she, like, yeah, our first scene with her, she was super mad, right? And every scene since, she's been understanding. And it kind of is a whole man moment where you're just like, oh my God, she's been getting
right.
drugged and manipulated ever since that first scene.
Right.
It's kind of
And
messed up.
and Jade needs his help because she needs to get her sister away from Umbrella. She knows they have her and she's terrified about what they're doing to her. I think she's also scared about what she saw like Billy do, but like she's just like, okay, we just got it. We can't let her be there. They're gonna hurt her. And they saw the stuff like it was revealed that their dad was using their blood to survive, which disgusted both of them and was terrifying to both of them. And so, but she saw that the torture that they put her father through. So
I
she
think by
knows
the
what
end,
mindset
they were
he's going.
fine with the whole blood thing in a way.
Yeah, but not until Bert sort of talks to Billy and convinces her to like he has like this great again, Lance Reddick does such a great job, but like he has this whole speech with Billy where he's basically like, yeah, he didn't do great things and these were mistakes and yeah, I get it, but
Could have been worse.
it could have been a lot worse, and he let you have life, he let you go to school and all this other stuff, and it's like, but man, he does such a good job in this role, in this character. It just was a joy to watch, and I wanted more of it. And I'll admit to you, I was pretty happy that Bert survives this whole thing, but it did confuse me about that gap that we heard about where like about the dad,
Yeah.
right? So there's this whole thing where it's like he's gonna sacrifice himself for his daughters. um and so we think that happens. It is done off camera, so I guess there's a possibility that it didn't happen.
I mean, the
Um,
flames go over him in the shot. But yeah, you don't see him like shrivel up and die. Sure.
but leading up to all this is like this whole kind of crazy like final confrontation between Bert, Albert, Billy, Jade, Simon, Evelyn, um, and like Billy not only attacks Jade, she also attacks Simon, and Simon immediately is going to be infected. And I gotta say, Evelyn is a cold, cold person because she just like takes him out, no problem.
Even Roth looks a little bit upset when that happens.
Yeah, and like that sort of is we know that that's a huge thing. The other thing that and this was just one of these other sort of before they get reunited with Billy and they're like, Evelyn's doing this whole sort of like sales show on Billy that, she's been infected with this thing and she's the only person can help her. Like, why on earth would they have injected her with adrenaline? I don't understand.
Yeah. And not tell her what it is too, so she can just get even more freaked out.
But that seemed, I thought they were going to inject her with more of the virus or something, but no, it's adrenaline. And of course she wigs out. But here you see the sort of building blocks for Billy thinking that, well, this is where I thought they were going, like where Billy thinking that Umbrella can help her with whatever's going on with her. But that's not even what happens here because she gets away. And I mean, would you ever trust Evelyn again after that incident where they like basically are locking her up and pumping her with adrenaline and doing crazy things? Probably not.
Yeah, that's
So,
one of the more frustrating parts about the end of this season, is that you don't have any reason yeah, exactly, there's no reason for her to go back to Umbrella. There's no reason for her to be an evil scientist for them. Jade is kind of on her course. That's pretty clear. She's going to go and just screw with stuff and be flying the ointment because that's kind of what she's been the entire time.
mm-hmm.
Billy has just kind of been wishy-washy, so I don't feel like we have a great sense still for her. And yeah, like that's one of the big problems with the ending for 2022 for sure. We also have had scenes of a Vecna in a jar in a Bacta
Yep.
tank. We saw that, I think, in the last episode where Evelyn's telling Bert, like, "I need you to help me with this project. This is the project. It's the Vecna."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like, wow. I
You
mean,
didn't know there was a tie-in, did you? I mean, no, just
definitely
kidding.
did
Not
not
yet.
anticipate that. I assume this is Evelyn's dad. Isn't that what he looked like?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was too.
Is Was it him or a different doctor with Umbrella from the movie who ends up looking like that?
I don't know, but
My
it's
my
well,
Resident Evil knowledge is poor at best. But Vecna wakes up and starts banging on the glass at some point during all this action, and then his hand comes out of the rubble, and that might be how the zombie outbreak begins.
It
But
might be,
still,
but we don't know.
we never really
Know.
find out.
And I thought, when Simon got bitten, I was like, that's going to be how it is, but no.
Yes, no.
Um, and yeah,
Giant zombie crocodile though loves B. So
yeah,
B is an interesting question mark for the end of the show. Billy, of course, has shot her sister and taken B. Arjun is bleeding out on the shore. I don't know how any of this is going to get resolved, other than
yeah.
the fact that Jade appears to be able to stand up,
By
even though
her
she was,
belly shot.
yeah, even though she was shot through all of her stomach muscles. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
then,
it's a bit of a. It's like there are elements of strength, but a lot of weaknesses in the end of this show, and just a lot of questions, and not
well,
enough to really drive you back into it if they
yeah,
do
I
a
mean,
season two.
there was one, kind of hint that, the dad, like Albert, before he sacrifices himself, gives them a name, which
Ada
is
Wong.
Ada Wong. And he also tells Bert that he deserves to have a life, even though he knows Bert is psycho. So I thought that was weird. But
Yeah.
so I mean, obviously, I think they're leaving open-ended things so that people can, so that there leaves an opening for season two. But I don't know that I don't know. It doesn't. It feels like they should have tied it up a little bit more neatly with a couple of open-ended stories. But to me, it was just not. It wasn't as tight as the beginning, and so as I said, I get some of the criticism, but overall, I just really enjoyed it. And I guess we have the whole cliffhanger where Billy has B, and Jade is gonna be trying to get her back. I'm sure it's gonna be very much a Kill Bill scenario, I suspect.
If
So
they get a second season,
yeah, if they
which
do,
we'll
but
see because it's been review bombed so badly. I don't know. Interesting final note from me is that the actors who play both young Jade and 2036 Jade, both English,
hmm,
their accents were impeccable.
they were really good.
So
Oh
bravo, Tamara Smart, and other lady whose name is Belinska, Ella Belinska. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, I slightly disappointed in this show, but it was still entertaining. I wish I hadn't had to watch it all in 1 week. I could have watched it in over more time. But also I'm kind of glad that we're done with it and we can move on to something else.
yeah, which was the purpose. And so and this, as far as I know, this has not been renewed, but there's been a few different speculation about the whole thing about Ada Wong and all this other stuff. So it feels like possibly it will be. I agree with you. I don't know about it because of the review bomb, and it wouldn't be the first time that you know, um that they didn't get a second season, but they're still announcing like potential things. So it's kind of interesting that that's kind of how it goes these days.
I would imagine
Um,
that Netflix will pay more attention to their own numbers than any
yeah,
review, but the reviews could be affecting people being willing to go watch it.
yeah. Um, you
It's
know,
still in the top 10 as of today.
and it did, like, at first it like totally knocked Stranger Things off. So I think, you know, I could see them doing this, and they have a whole vision, and they've been like teasing this stuff up. So it wouldn't shock me that they go forward with this. So, we'll have to see. They've been out there kind of like, if we're lucky enough to get this season, these are the things that could happen. So we'll have to wait and see about that. I would definitely still watch it. But I was disappointed in some of the way that they left the ending. I did want that scene to show how it actually was the outbreak starting. I think it would have been a lot neater and better if it had actually been Simon who had started it, honestly.
I
But
just think I think the zombie apocalypse should have started in like season episode 2 or 3, and then the
yep,
rest of the 2022 storyline should have been how they got out, because that was the expectation I was given in episode 1
yeah,
when
but
that
that's
when that
not what
Scottish
they
guy,
did.
yeah.
Yep, not
So
what they
that you know, us armchair scriptwriters definitely have a different take on it, but it's not what we got. So I guess that's all we have for Resident Evil. We will be taking a little time off from the podcast, unfortunately, because of work and travel. But we will be back in August for more. And I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be, but there's a good chance it will be Tales of the Walking Dead or it will be Valley of the Dead, the Netflix movie. Do you agree, AJ?
I agree.
Wonderful. So we will come back and regale you all with more with more zombies, and then vampires. So
Yep.
thanks for coming along for the ride. And if you want to get at us, you can tweet at us at reanimatedpcast. Email is reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And our website with the show notes is at reanimatedpodcast.com.
So until next time, ciao.
And thanks for listening.